In the last section, I talked about a high-level overview of NAPALM. Now, in this section, let's start diving in more specifically to how to use NAPALM in conjunction with Ansible. So the first question is, how did I install NAPALM Ansible as of this current point in time? And what I have here is I've done a git clone of the NAPALM Ansible repository. So it is installed right there. And then you'll notice inside NAPALM Ansible, there's this library folder, and that contains the NAPALM Ansible modules. And then in my Ansible, in my .ansible.config file, I've modified the module path to include that directory. Now, as I'm recording this, we're working on a new install method which will let this be pip installable. Will allow the NAPALM Ansible modules to be pip installable. So that might change this slightly, but you would still need to update your module path, and it would just be a matter of where those modules, where those NAPALM Ansible modules are installed into. Now, we have the NAPALM Ansible modules installed. Let's go ahead and look at some examples of using the NAPALM Ping module. So here I have a playbook. It's going to operate on two Cisco routers that are defined in my inventory. I specify a host name, a username, a password. Notice I also specify this dev_os. This is basically the NAPALM device type. And here I'm telling it that this is an iOS device. So it's going to run the NAPALM iOS specific code. And then I'm saying to ping this IP address, which is the default gateway for these two Cisco routers. If I go ahead and run this playbook, give it the -VVV argument so I can see a little bit more details about the ping. We'll wait for that execution to complete. I can see it was successful, and I can see my pings work. So here 5 pings were sent. I get some RTT, some round trip information. I see that worked for PyNet router 1. If I go up and look, I can see it also worked for PyNet router 2. Now if I look at this second playbook, you can see I've now converted this playbook to use a provider. So just like with the Ansible core modules, we can also use a provider with the NAPALM Ansible modules. So we'll be able to use this provider. Where is this creds variable stored? This credential variable is stored in the cisco.yml file inside of group vars. So here I have my creds variable defined. It defines a host name, a username, a password, and also this dev_os argument. So basically specifying the NAPALM device type. If we run this second playbook that uses the provider, we're going to see that the NAPALM Ping once again operates successfully. If we look at this third playbook that I've created, now we can see that I'm expanding on this. Now I'm not just using the Cisco device type, or the Cisco hosts, I'm also using the Arista group. So both the Cisco group and the Arista group. I'm calling the NAPALM Ping module, and I'm using that provider. Now here you can notice one nice aspect of NAPALM versus the Ansible core modules, in that the Ansible core modules all had the modules keyed by platform. So you would have something like iOS_command, EOS underscore command, Junos underscore command. So you actually had to have multiple tasks or multiple plays by platform. Whereas with Napalm, I can have a single task, so here Napalm Ping, that spans a bunch of platforms. And that the only difference between this is this device type, which is embedded in the provider or which you explicitly provide, but you can make it be a variable. So this allows us to simplify our playbook. Here we're going to ping both the Cisco group and the Arista group. Once again, the creds variable is defined in group vars, and here you see my Arista credentials. And the only thing that's changed there from the Cisco credentials is I've defined this dev underscore OS to be EOS, and I provided this optional arguments, which in this case is blank, so I didn't actually need it. But in some cases, you're going to need this optional arguments so you can see the format of what it looks like. So here I go ahead and execute this third playbook, and we can see that the ping is operating on those 6 devices, the 4 Arista switches, and the 2 Cisco routers. And then one last example. Here you can see a ping that's going to operate on Arista, Cisco, and Juniper. Arista's using eAPI, Cisco's using SSH, Juniper's doing netconf. Each of them's pulling the creds variable from group vars, and here's what the Juniper creds variable looks like. Exactly the same as what you saw with Arista, except the dev underscore OS variable is now defined as Junos. Go ahead and run that playbook and see that our ping, Napalm Ping, works correctly for the now 7 devices. 2 Cisco iOS, 4 Arista EOS, 1 Juniper SRX using netconf. So that covers an overview of using the Ansible Napalm Ping module, and also shows you how to use a provider in conjunction with that module.